Welcome to IDG. I am Sonu Bhasin, and IDG is the Informal Discussion Group, a carry forward from our college days, where college is, of course, St. Stephen's College. Our guest today is S Y Quaraishi, who's best known as the Chief Election Commissioner of India and also as a renowned author. So I just want to share with you that I first heard Quraishi Saab more than 10, 11 years ago in Bombay at a corporate marketing awards event. And, I was sitting in the audience and he was the chief guest or something. And when the time came for him to speak, and as he got up and, went to the mic, I prepared myself to listen to some more of that, boring government speak. And I took out my BlackBerry. Those were the BlackBerry days. And I started, I took out Brick Breaker, which was my favorite game. And I said, chalo, abhi thoda der Brick Breaker khelte hain, jab tak ye speech over ho jati hai. And then as he started speaking, I forgot about Brick Breaker because he spoke so passionately and so interestingly about the entire election process and how it was marketed, how it was operationalized, how many people were involved, and more and more and more. And I remember thinking to myself that wouldn't it be so good to speak to him in person? And look, here I am talking to him in person. So, some wishes do come true. But today we are going to speak more about his latest book, also about his life. For the election process, he's promised that he will come back again to IDG and talk about the election process. So welcome, Quraishi Saab. And I am looking forward to this conversation, as is, I am sure, everybody else.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sonu. Very nice of you to connect me with the Stephanians in Mumbai. My friend, she wrote to me an email about 6-8 months ago, and or was it a WhatsApp, which somehow missed. Lots of mails get lost. So suddenly this time around, I don't know how she revived the contact, and I looked for the previous mail, and there she was. She had made this request to me to make a presentation here in this group long, long ago. So I suppose there is a time for everything, and then this is the time. And when I obviously they very readily, happily agreed, because college is my weakness. As I was mentioning to her that my father was in college with Mr. Sarkar and Mr. Bose, and I grew up hearing about college and lots of stories. And then my two brothers besides me, they were in college. Then my daughter went to college. So I have a 3-generation connection, except that since I was not in residence, so therefore to that extent, a little less Lithuanian than somebody who was born in college. So still, now most Lithuanians have done only 3 years in college. I have done 5. So probably that improves my credentials a little. So, and I'm very, very, very proud of the fact. And as I said, it is actually St. Stephen's is my weakness, because there are so many people, I was in civil service, I was in various positions of authority where people want to meet for something or the other. And all they needed to write the chabi that they needed to get an appointment. Sir, I'm a Stephanian of such and such batch. And immediately the doors opened and the meeting, which were pending for 6 months, 1 year, suddenly happened. So, and I have no second thoughts about it. It's my weakness, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah. So Quraishi Saab, where you're talking about your early days in college. So I wanted to stay on that for a bit. You said your father was there, your brothers were there. So did you always grow up wanting to go to college, and was your experience in college exactly the way that you had thought about it? And you've also said that you were a front bencher with the mindset of a backbencher. So what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I studied in a traditional Muslim school called Anglo-Arabic school, which has the distinction being in a general knowledge book, in the sense this is the oldest living school of India. It was founded by the first Nizam of Hyderabad. He was the general of Aurangzeb in 1692. And that school has continued non-stop. And since I lived in walled city of Delhi, and my entire family and my previous generation, they all went to the same school. So, but since even was almost like a second home in the sense that my father not only studied there, but Sarkasa was the principal at that time when I was admitted. So, and I suppose that made things easy for me to enter college. Now, my father was the captain of the football team of St. Stephen's, and he was a goalkeeper. So among various stories he used to tell us, once was we came from a socially very important family, because my grandfather, great grandfather, they were all for 10 generations, they were all scholars of philosophy, religion, theology, and Islam, and who wrote 30, 40, 100 books, each one of them. So, but financially challenged. So, we barely made our ends meet. So, when he was mentioning that we were having a final match with Hindu College, traditional rivals, and his father had bought him a new bicycle. And 3 days before that game, and that bicycle was parked just behind the goalpost. So he was obviously very possessive about the bike. He was constantly looking at the bike. So the Hinduites, clever that they are, they noticed it, and the bike was removed from there. Within 3 minutes, 3 goals were scored, and the bike reappeared. So that also gives us a secret how if the Hindu has won against us, they must have done some trick of this kind or the other every time. So this is one of the stories I heard. Then my brother also played for India when he was in BA second year, Aziz Quraishi. Some of you may have heard of him. So he was a very great footballer. And also he was Delhi University's athletics captain. So I was, compared to my brother, the boy next door, totally listless. And as I said, I used to sit on the front bench, but hardly spoke in the class. So I was too shy and too short of words. Now it becomes difficult for you to stop me.
Stop you. So you're making up for lost time.
Yes, this is what happened. In fact, I remember Amin Saab telling us a story of Balban. I don't know how many of you have done history. So Balban's son Kaikobad was brought up in a very strict regimen, and as soon as Balban died, this guy became the biggest lech of the town. So this happened. This analogy doesn't apply to me totally, but in terms of teaching. So, well, these are some, and as I was mentioning to you, it's not that my existence was totally listless. I got first prize for standing first in Urdu.
Yeah.
And as I was telling Sonu, it is not my fault if I was the only candidate.
So, very tough competition, huh, Quraishi sir? Beating yourself.
Exactly, beating yourself is the toughest competition. So that's how it is. But I'm very proud of every moment I spent. Now, I was a student of history. While in school, I had economics and commerce. I never studied history in school. So why did I switch over to history? Because that was considered as the nursery of the IS. So, which is why it was important that I go to St. Stephen's and then join history honors, because almost half the class ended up in civil service. So, which was a very good decision, because the atmosphere and the peer group influence was entirely conducive to the civil service. And
so you were you were in college from 64 to 69, I think.
That's right. That's right.
And then you taught for 2 years in Zakir Hussain College.
Delhi College.
Delhi College, which is
Delhi College is, Delhi College is also a very traditional, historic college of Delhi. It was later renamed as Zakir Hussain College, which was very unfair of the government. If they wanted to name something after Zakir Hussain, they should have built another college. A college which was known as Delhi College for 200 years. You don't rename it just like that. So anyway, not long ago, 10 years ago, Kapil Sibal pressurized Manmohan Singh to, Manmohan Singh is the, by the way, Prime Minister of India, is the president of Delhi College.
I
So,
see.
yeah. So now he forced Dr. Manmohan Singh to rename it partially. It is now Zakir Hussain Delhi College. So at least Delhi College has been restored partially, although we would like it to be Delhi College as it was for 200 years.
200 years. So you taught there and then you joined the IS in 71 and you were given the Haryana cadre. And
Yes.
I believe you were very apprehensive because you thought कि यहाँ तो सिर्फ agriculture होता है. And you
So
were a student of history. But
yes.
when you ended up writing 2 books
Yes.
during your early stint.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Tell us
Yes.
about your early stint.
I will not only tell you, but I'll show you those 2 books.
Yeah.
It's a 2 volume. You know, when I joined there, as a history very fresh in my mind, and I said, I thought to myself that why is it that they say Haryana is nothing, only agriculture, whereas every stone of Haryana is steeped in history. The entire history of India has always been decided in Haryana, starting from Mahabharata, Battle of Tarain when Muhammad Ghori came and the Muslim rule began. Then the 3 battles of Panipat. So in such a context, to say that Haryana is nothing, so I started investigating that I must find out for myself exactly what is the situation. And I ended up with a 2-volume book called Haryana Rediscovered. It's a bibliography. It's a bibliography. Haryana Rediscovered, a bibliographer's area study. So the 2 volumes, this is all economic subjects. This is all the other subjects. So after that, every week I'll get a call from somebody or some scholar who would wanted to write, because for scholars, availability of material is extremely crucial. If there is no material, what will you write on? So when they saw that there was so much of material available in archives and in library, so it encouraged many people to go for research, and that's how I think it was a singular contribution. Yeah.
And then you came back to Gurgaon, I think in 80 and 83 to be the deputy commissioner of Gurgaon, right? So how different was Gurgaon at that time? You currently live in Gurgaon. So how different was Gurgaon in the early 80s? And if you've seen Gurgaon develop to where it is, can you just briefly talk about that? How did it happen?
In fact, Gurgaon was beautiful those days. It was unaffected by urbanization. It was a small town with less than 1 lakh population, and there were only 2 sectors of Buddha. So I think that was a very beautiful life, because all these top big skyscrapers that you see, they were all villages. And we used to go there regularly to do Girdavri, which is crop inspection, or go and settle dispute in the villages. And now this is beyond recognition. But those good old days of purity, I miss. And in fact, for an IAS officer, a backwardness of a district is the best qualification to acquire, because the more backward the district, the greater your experience. I had under me, even Mewat district was part of Gurgaon district, and with the 4% female literacy, 9% overall literacy, worse than the most backward part of Bihar, right under the national capital, 40 kilometers from the national capital. So I had the best of both worlds. The Gurgaon was like being posted in Delhi and living in a 10-acre house, because DC's house was a beautiful big bungalow, about 10 acres. We used to have agriculture there, for regular agriculture there. So yet the backwardness of the district, so it was one of the best experiences of my life.
And then you also, before you became the chief election commissioner, you also were the head of NACO, which is National AIDS Control Organization. And I don't know how many of us know about this organization. I certainly didn't. And also, what kind of work that it does. But
Yeah.
again, can you tell us about this? Because it sounds very interesting and important.
Yes, that was the time when HIV/AIDS, actually the HIV was talked about from 1991 onwards. And I was lucky to be exposed to the idea, not to AIDS,
Not
but
to
to the
AIDS.
to the idea, because as Joint Secretary Youth Affairs, in Youth Affairs, we had this content in one of our program called University Stock AIDS. It's a unique name given to it by the students themselves, because even talking about AIDS was taboo. So we got interested in about 170 universities were doing this program. So when NACO was born in 92, they borrowed all the material that we had developed and started giving us grant in return. So well, I didn't really know that 10 years later, I'll myself become the DG. Since I was already familiar and the problem was urgent, in my very first meeting with my staff, I said I give myself 48 hours of probation. 48 hours, please forgive me if I make a mistake, but after that, I have to be on top of the problem in any case, because have been exposed to the idea for a long time. And it was extremely important internationally. It brought India on the international map. All the 31 international NGO organizations, UN, various organizations. In fact, Clinton Foundation, by the way, incidentally, Clinton was the last organization with which we signed an MOU. And that was the time when Government of India had decided to throw out all the these donor countries, Canada, Sweden, everything, CEDA, because they used to come with the strings attached, with little grant, but too many rules. They say all of you get lost except USAID and British DFID, except for these two, and the World Bank. All others were thrown out. In a situation like this, when somebody came from Clinton Foundation to meet my minister, Ambumani Ramdas, so Ambumani called me, what to do, because this is the rule. So I said, sir, leave it to me, because we have a bureaucratic network. My best friend from college and my batchmate Sudhir Mankad, who retired as Chief Secretary of Gujarat later on, he was Additional Secretary in Finance Ministry in charge of UN organization. So I said, sir, now that we should have stopped them from coming, but the guy is airborne. Ira Maxiner was the name, and he was the very close friend of Bill Clinton and chairman of his health initiative. He was already airborne. He was landing tomorrow, the next day. So I said it will be very embarrassing that we didn't know this and we allowed them to come. Now we must sign this. So he said, how do we do it? The minister was scared. I said, don't worry, sir. On my network, I'll get it done. So I went to Sudhir Mankad. I said, okay, Sudhir, this is our dilemma. And so he says, okay, if you write to us for permission, you will surely not get it. I think you go ahead and do it. And ex post facto write to us with apology. We will very reluctantly accept your apology. So, and go ahead. So that is how we signed the thing. So I got very friendly with Bill Clinton, by the way. And later on, interestingly, in one function, I offered him a job. So,
Wow.
and it is on record. It is on record,
Yeah.
because it was a CII function with 450 or 500 captains of business and industry attending it in Taj Palace Hotel. And Clinton in his speech said, when I last time came, my daughter was with me, and but now she's in college, and my wife is a senator, and I'm unemployed or something. So in my speech, I say, sir, the foundation has done wonderful job for us, and I recounted. Really, they had done wonderful job. Okay, they had done this for us, and with these credentials, can I offer you a job? And then, having learned a little theater from my brother, I paused for 30 seconds to see his reaction. So he hid his face like this, like a child. So, and then I said, the job of the chief mentor to NACO. So Later on, I got cold feet. I thought External Affairs Ministry will call me and it is a diplomatic incident and they will really fire me. And then Ira magazine, do you think he minded? He said, no, he enjoyed. So, but nothing happened. So, but this is a CD which is available, which I should somehow, I think, put it on social media sometime. Yeah, who can offer Clinton a job, but humble civil servant.
No, so
And
very interesting.
finally, I was didn't take part in many of college activities because I was so interested in music, Western music, and I was and since I could not afford to buy a guitar, I used to make my own guitars, electric guitars. I made 5 in my life. So and later on, of course, we formed a band outside college, and that took a lot of time. I could have done better in academics, but it is not that I did badly. I got 59% in MA, which gave me a job within 3 days. My joblessness was entirely 3 days. So within 3 days, I was teaching. And incidentally, our famous Vinod Rai was also teaching in that college. And he and I and one more officer appeared, and I was the only one who made it in one attempt. And Vinod Rai did not make it. He was from Hindu college, so he made it in 2 attempts. So,
so you're not only better than Vijay Rai,
Vinod Rai.
but you're also better than Bill Clinton because your joblessness was only for 3 days. It continued. It continued. Achha, then you became the Chief Election Commissioner, and then you say that was the high point of your career. So why was it the high point of your career? You've held other jobs, important jobs. So why, according to you, was this the high point of your career?
The India is the biggest democracy in the world. And India's election, every election in India has been the biggest in world history. Now, we have more voters than entire Europe, 50 countries, more voters than 54 countries of Africa, or North and South America together. In fact, our entire Commonwealth, 53 countries together, we have more voters. Actually, 90 countries rolled into one. And we have the problems and complexities of 90 countries rolled into one. Any kind of problem, you name it in those 90 countries, we'll have somewhere or the other. Militancy, terrorism, this kind of warfare, that kind of trouble, everything. So conducting those elections and with such finesse and great honor. So it's the greatest honor which a nation could have bestowed on me. And when I used to go abroad, interestingly, I was the first Muslim CEC. I was very embarrassed. I hated to be described as a Muslim. I'm a good Muslim, believing Muslim. But I'm also a blue-blooded IS officer. So I would like to believe that every post that I get is because I'm a good officer and not, in a kind of a quota system. So when in the Times of India wrote the first Muslim CEC, I was very angry and very upset. But I realized the beauty of it when I went abroad. I remember I went to Egypt, and the way the people looked up and down at me, I said, why? He said, we cannot believe the largest democracy in the world and the head is a Muslim. So I said, that is normal for India. That is India. So what is there to be surprised about? So since it makes a political statement, it makes a great social statement. So later on, I got reconciled to the idea. So if you call me a Muslim Estefanian, I won't mind it anymore. But interestingly, Sonu, let me tell you, in BA third year, one of my best friend, Anup Punan was his name, and he was in the IS. He unfortunately died very early in an accident. He asked me in BA third year, Quraishi, are you a Muslim? I said, damn it, you have been friends for 3 years. And my name in college, as you know, in college, our first name was more important than the middle name. So Shahabuddin Y Quraishi was my name. Now Shahabuddin or Yaqub Quraishi, entirely, unmistakably Muslim. But it did not matter. whether I was a Muslim or what I was, it just did not matter in college those days. So I'm proud of my days. Yeah.
Yeah. So, now before we come and talk about your book, which is what, we wanted to do for this session of IDG, and you talked about, visiting foreign countries. I want to take a small detour to Mexico. So you went to Mexico and something interesting happened.
Yes,
About
yes.
10 years ago? How many years ago?
No, 7 years ago.
7 years ago. So tell us about what happened in Mexico.
In 2015, I retired from the Election Commission in 2012. 2015, there was a conference on political finance in Mexico. I met a lady from who introduced herself very modestly that she is from Election Commissioner of Nepal. So I had to ask her, is she a commissioner? She said, yes. So Election Commissioner of Nepal, Ila Sharma. So a youngish lady and a pretty lady, quite pretty lady. And of course, since she was from Nepal and instinctively you become protective of your junior neighbor. So 3-4 days we spent and then forgotten. 3 months later, I got an email from her that she was in town and if I could meet. So that day, I forgot to mention that we have a beat group even now, and a rock band, if you like. So, and one of our lead singer is Shiv Shankar Menon, another Stefanian, the former National Security Advisor and Foreign Secretary. So we were having our music performance that day, and I said, you're most welcome, and this is what we have to join. She came. He brought a cake for me. Uspe likha tha for Mr. and Mrs. Quraishi. So I said, Mrs. Quraishi to hai nahi, koi baat nahi, le aayenge, koi baat nahi, le aayenge. This, I don't know how I said this. Now she discovered that I'm single. She discovered, this is how she discovered that I'm single. Later on in conversation, I asked her about her family. She said her husband was a police officer who was brutally murdered by the Maoists in Nepal 20 years before. So 20 years she was single widow, I was a single divorcee, and with no intention of marrying either here or there in her mind. So, but then the moment we realized they were both single, so our resolutions broke. And same day I was going to drop her to Delhi, and I said, we'll go via my brother, same Aziz Quraishi I mentioned to you earlier. उनके शंकर मार्केट में कनॉट प्लेस में ऊपर जाते हुए मैंने उनको बोला अब this is the one way of proposing, by the way. I think, how should I introduce you to my brother as my bride? So she
that was very forward of you.
she blushed. She blushed, and actually I didn't mention anything to my brother and his wife. So later on, next day morning, my brother called, "Hey, Yaqub, congratulations, congratulations." I said, "Kya ho gaya?" "Arey, yes, very nice girl, very nice girl." I said, "Who? Which nice girl? जो तुम्हारे साथ कल आई थी?" तो मैंने कहा, "But how? Why do you say that there was something else?" He said, "वो तो तुम्हारी आंखों से लग रहा था." So and not me, but my wife pointed out, "Look at this." So anyway, this is how it began. She is now my wife, Ila Sharma. If you Google Ila Sharma and S Y Quaraishi, you'll find interesting stuff because it came in papers all around the world. That was the time when she wanted to keep it a secret because she was a serving election commissioner, and anti-India feeling in Nepal were very, very high. Not so much anti-Muslim feeling, which is more an Indian phenomenon, but so that's how, when the news broke in the Telegraph of Calcutta, we were a little taken aback, but then every other newspaper picked it up within a day or two. So then there was no stopping. But she is my wife, and she is a professor of law in a university in Gurgaon, and we are very happy together. 6 years we have been married.
Good, good. This is a fantastic love story.
Yes.
And romance happened in Mexico. And
Yes.
so I guess a lot of people are going to make a beeline to Mexico the next time there is a conference that happens, especially single men and single women.
Yes.
Yeah. So, now let's just come and talk about your book, which is this book for anybody who hasn't yet seen it. So, my first, the thought that came to my mind was that what prompted you to write on this theme?
Yeah,
Busting the population myth of.
yeah, correct. Since you have a copy of the book, if you go to the end and read the acknowledgements, in acknowledgement, I have written how the journey of the book began. It began totally accidentally in 1995 when the then country director of UNFPA, who was a Canadian, white Canadian, not Indian origin, so he came to ask me to write a strategy paper for promoting family planning among the Muslims in India. So I was taken aback. I said, look, I'm not a family planning expert. I've never been in that department. And nor am I an Islamic scholar that I will be able to know what Islam says about it. But he had seen my work in communication for 2-3 days in something else. So he got after. And he offered me a consultancy for 1 month of 1.5 lakh rupees. 1.5 lakh. My salary was 5,000. So it was very attractive. So I said, okay, since you insist, I will do it, but I will do it pro bono. They were taken aback. He says, Kamal, it's strange that you're saying pro bono because here people bring pressure on us to give them consultancy. So I said, no, I'll do it pro bono. So he said, no, pro bono, we won't accept. You'll have to charge. So we settled on a royal term of a sum of 1 rupee. Now, 1 rupee or 1 million, it is a financial transaction. So we went through all the procedure. I said, okay, you write to me a letter, I'll take Government of India permission. We will sign a contract. We did all that and I started writing my paper. It took more than 1 month. It took me 5 months, but it opened my eyes. At that time, I also believed what everybody else believed, that Muslims multiply like pigs and they are responsible for population explosion. And if a Hindu family has 2 children, Muslims have 10 children. That is the belief everybody seemed to have, and I also had the same belief. But it opened my eyes. The data which I came up with, 33-page paper, which they circulated. Now, the fact that I will, my inner voice that I will charge nothing, turned out to be true because 5 years later, I was in London where my daughter, my Stephanian daughter, Sarah, I have only one daughter, Sarah Quraishi, she was studying in London and SOAS, and in her hostel, I was staying with her. I got a call from somebody who introduced himself as Dr. Quraishi, also Dr. Quraishi, President of Muslim Doctors Association of UK. And he said, Mr. Quraishi, we have read your paper and we have some issues to discuss. The tone was a bit threatening. And I didn't want to get beaten up in London, so I wanted to get out of it. I said, sorry, मेरी तो flight है कल सुबह, तो कौन सी flight है? Air India 10 बजे होती थी, वो 10 बजे airport पहुंच गए, 11-12 बजे. There were 2 of them. And their very first statement still rings in my mind. They said, Mr. Quraishi, family planning is a Western conspiracy against Islam, and they hire mercenaries like you through UN agencies to write such papers. So every single word of this sentence would have applied to me because I was hired by a UN agency. So that made me a mercenary and became a part of the conspiracy and all that. Since I had not taken even 1 rupee, I have not taken that even till today. So then I, of course, pounced on them. I said, what nonsense are you talking? I'm a good Muslim. And that was the time when Salman Rushdie and Taslima Nasreen were also very famous. And my friends were warning me, no, you end up like them through this paper. So, but I had written it very, very carefully. So that is how the paper came. But since it was lying on my table for a long time, it was very popular then. I was invited for lectures, and for any lecture also, I did not charge a single rupee because I said, let this be my national contribution. I'm doing it for the nation because I'm trying to remove misunderstanding and bring the 2 communities together. That is the whole intention of my book even today. Now, if you see the dedication, very first page dedication, it is dedicated to unity and diversity in India. Right. So that is how the book began. So it was lying on my table, but it took me 25 years to publish it. Why? It's not that I'm so such a backbencher like I was in college. It so happened that every time my book was nearing ready, new data will come up. Particularly National Family Health Survey, which comes every 5 years. NFHS 1, 2, 3, and 4. Every time the book was ready, the next survey, so I have to re-examine the thing whether I'm now outdated. So fortunately, every survey was only reaffirming my conclusion, and that is what has gone on, and this is what I've written in the book.
Yeah. So, it's whatever reviews I have read, and I haven't, since I got the book only, I think, a couple of days ago, I haven't yet read the book, but the reviews that I have read all talk about the extensive and impeccable data and research that is visible in the book. So, how did you go about researching, collecting data? Was it a tedious task? Did you do it yourself? Anything interesting that happened during your quest for more data?
Yeah, no, basic conclusion, basic hypothesis was entirely mine. Basic conclusions were mine, but since we had to update the data, I had hired a research assistant who was to come and join me from Bengal, from Rourkela. Durgapur, she was to come and join, but she could not because immediately then the COVID started. So I've not seen her face, but she was with me for 9 months. And one young girl, 19, 20-year-old girl, who was a topper from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, she did a very good job of collecting data. And in fact, which is very good that because HarperCollins is a hard task master. Because, and in this day and age, when at the drop of a hat, people take you to court, they wanted me to cite everything to the extent sometimes they wanted me to cite my own statement. So, भाई ये तो मेरा ही statement है, मैं इसकी क्या citation लाऊंगा? So, there are 450 citations which make it authentic because their legal department worked very hard on it, and every sentence, every point which I made, they wanted citation. So I'm glad that this is fully cited. Therefore, this makes it a very academic work. Although my other books, including an undocumented wonder, the making of the great Indian election, which you referred to, this has done very well. This is the 5th edition paperback now, after 4 hard copy. So this is not so scholarly. It is more experiential. Whereas this one turned out to be scholarly because of so many, everything is cited, data, statement, anything.
So before I want to talk, I do want to talk to you about the larger problem or this thing of population in general. But since your book is about population myth, Islam, family planning, and politics in India, what are some of the myths in that you have busted in this book?
Sonu, I would like you to please uplink my PowerPoint because there are so many graphs there, which without the graphs, I won't be able to explain those things.
So just give me a minute. Yeah, let me share screen.
Yeah. That will make it easy for people to understand because I'll run through it. Don't worry, I won't make it.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, why is it called RGI lecture? Because I'm very happy that the Registrar General of India and the Director General of Census of India, whose data I have used, he asked me to give a lecture to his entire staff throughout the country, 250 officers, half of them IAS officers. So I gave this lecture to them, and they were quite taken aback because they say, "हमारे data से आपने इतना अच्छी presentation कर दी." So, because presentation also is an art and a technique. So, let us run through the next slide, please. Now, there are several myths that Muslims are increasing their population, which is creating fear and hostility among the Hindus against the Muslims. Now, this is very important for you to understand why this book is topical and not topical for today. It has been topical for the last 60 years. because Hindu Muslim में polarization करने के लिए the basic propaganda has been that Muslims are multiplying deliberately to overtake Hindu population and become rulers again.
Yeah.
Next, please. The 5 myths I'm talking about. The myth number 1: Muslims produce too many children and they are responsible for population explosion. Yes, Muslims have the lowest level of family planning, 45%. And their TFR is total fertility rate, which means that the number of children a woman will produce in her lifetime is TFR. So the TFR of the Muslims is highest, 2.6 children. 2.6 children, not 10 children, by the way. Not 10 children or 8 children, 2.6. Now,
and the national average has just gone below 2, right?
Yeah. I'll come to that. I'll come to that. It's gone below 2. Now, but the fact that Hindus are not far behind, they have the second lowest family planning at 54. That is not mentioned. And the second highest TFR of 2.13 is completely missed. Now, the last Independence Day address, Prime Minister said that he linked it with patriotism. Those who produce many children are unpatriotic. Those who keep less children, produce less children, are most patriotic. At that time, he did not know that the most patriotic are the Sikhs, because their popular family planning is 80%, as against 54% of the Hindus. The second lowest is the Hindus. If Muslims are guilty, the second most guilty are the Hindus. So how can we forget that? So therefore, Muslim ये बना रहा है. अरे भाई, उधर Hindus की फिगर भी तो देखो. एक तो sorry, I must apologize throughout this presentation. Hindu Muslim will come. I hate to do that, but without that, this cannot be explained, because the book is all about that. Now, between 1951 till the last census, which was 2011, the net increase in Muslim population was 13.6 crores and Hindus 67 crore. 13 crore Muslim बढ़ गए, 67 crore Hindus बढ़ गए. तो गैप तो बढ़ रहा है, न कि घट रहा है. तो where are the Muslims overtaking? So then the gap between Muslims and Hindu population increased from 26 crores to 80 crores. 1951 में 26 करोड़ हिंदू ज्यादा थे मुसलमानों के मुकाबले में, आज 80 करोड़ ज्यादा है. और उसके बाद थ्रेड बताया जा रहा है कि डरो डरो मुसलमान आ रहा है. तो ये the absurdity of that comes out with these figures. So next please. Myth number 2, Muslim population is upsetting the demographic balance. यहाँ पे थोड़ी सी बात मानी जा सकती है कि the demographic ratio indeed shows an increase in Muslim from 9.8 in 1951 to 14.2 in 2011, and a corresponding decline in Hindus from 84 to 79.8. यानी 4% percentage point हिंदूज घट गए, मुस्लिम बढ़ गए. और ये जो हिंदूज घटे, ये थे सिक्स, क्रिश्चियन, मुस्लिम, हर एक में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट हो गया, मेनली मुसलमानों में चला गया. Now, but another fact which is very important to understand, that Muslims are adopting family planning faster than the Hindus, and as a result, in the last 30 years, the gap in the number of children is narrowing. It was 1.1 children in 1991, and it has come down to less than half, 0.48 in last 30 years. Actually, जो impression था ना कि 10 बच्चे मुसलमान के होते हैं, actually the gap between Hindus and Muslims was never more than one child, 1.1 to be precise. So वो भी घट के आधा रह गया, क्योंकि मुस्लिम ज्यादा तेजी से फैमिली प्लानिंग अडॉप्ट कर रहे हैं. नंबर 3, नेक्स्ट प्लीज. Now, ये उसी का है कि किस तरह पिछले 4 NFHS में पिछले 30 साल में जो गैप था हिंदू और मुस्लिम में 1.1 बच्चे का सबसे पहले वाले बार में, वो आधे से कम रह गया, 0.48 चला गया. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. Myth number 3. There is an organized conspiracy by Muslims to overtake the Hindu population to capture political power. They are about to succeed within a few years. हमने कितनी बार सुना, बस 4 साल, बस 5 साल में आ रहे हैं, बस अभी 3 साल में आ गए, और लोग बिलीव करते हैं और उसके मुताबिक मुसलमानों को गालियां देना शुरू कर देते हैं. And secondly, the right-wing leaders were also appealing to Hindus कि भाई देखो ये पावर में आ जाएंगे, तुम भी 10-10 बच्चे पैदा करो. फॉर्चुनेटली हिंदूज ने, किसी हिंदू ने उनकी बात नहीं मानी, वरना वो भी 10-10 बच्चे पैदा करने लग जाते तो देश का क्या हाल होता. लेकिन ये अपील, दिस इज ऑल ऑन रिकॉर्ड, एवरी स्टेटमेंट साइटेड, duly cited by and corroborated by the legal, checked by the legal team of the publisher. Now, the fact is that no Muslim leader or a scholar has asked Muslims to produce more children to overtake Hindus. हमने स्कॉलर को ये कहते जरूर सुना कि फैमिली प्लानिंग ना करना कि इस्लाम के खिलाफ है, लेकिन ये कहते हुए कि चूंकि तुम नहीं सुना. और अगर कहा होता तो राइट विंग ने तो इसके तो 50 सोशल मीडिया पे वीडियो जारी कर दिए होते. हो सकता है कोई स्ट्रीट कॉर्नर नुक्कड़ का मुल्ला उन्होंने हर दाढ़ी वाला डज नॉट बिकम ए मुल्ला, तो किसी का ये हो भी, लेकिन कुछ ऐसी चीज मुझे तो कोई नहीं मिली. इन्हें रिसर्च बुक जो 25 साल रिसर्च चली जिसपे. नाउ इंटरेस्टिंगली इसमें हमारे फेलो स्टीफेनियन शामिल हैं. मैंने प्रोफेसर दिनेश सिंह, हु वाज आवर वाइस चांसलर ऑफ दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी एंड ए ग्रेट मैथमेटिशियन, मैंने दिनेश को कहा कि दिनेश भाई, तो मेरे लिए एक मैथमेटिकल मॉडल आप बना सकते हैं. मैं 70 साल का डेटा आपको भेजता हूँ कि उसमें कि कितनी जल्दी हमारी हुकूमत आ जाएगी. तो उसने मेरे सारे जो होप्स थी, ही डाइड देम टू द ग्राउंड कि जी मैं पावर में आ जाऊंगा आफ्टर अकबर, मेरा ही रूल होगा. मैंने कहा भूल जाओ भाईजान, नेवर एवर. और अगले स्लाइड देखिए उन्होंने क्या दिखाया. दिस इज द मैथमेटिकल मॉडल कि नीचे वाली लाइन मुस्लिम ग्रोथ है, ऊपर वाली लाइन हिंदू ग्रोथ है, और उसके बाद हिंदू थ्रेटन फील करे. इससे ज्यादा कोई अब्सर्डिटी हो नहीं सकती. दिस इज ए मॉडल बाय प्रोफेसर दिनेश सिंह एंड प्रोफेसर अजय कुमार, नाइदर ऑफ देम माय कजन, राइट. तो अब ये देखिए, ये दिस इज द ग्राफ प्रोड्यूस बाय टू मैथमेटिशियन. उन्होंने ये मॉडल. फिर मैंने कहा कि ये तो आज तक आपने दिखाया 70 साल का मॉडल, ये 150 साल का मॉडल है. अगले 150 साल में क्या होगा? अगले 150 साल में भी होगा. तो 150 साल तक के लिए तो मैं पावर में आ नहीं सकता. अब और कितने इंतजार करो. उसने कहा साहब इसको टेबल को बढ़ाते चले जाइए, 1000 साल कर दीजिए, इसकी शक्ल यही रहेगी, ये रहेगी. तो इसलिए ये जो कहना कि मुस्लिम दार ओवरटेक, ये अब्सर्डिटी बिल्कुल क्लियरली, इससे ज्यादा कोई प्रूफ नहीं हो सकता. चौथा, मुस्लिम यूज पॉलीगेमी फॉर इंक्रीजिंग पॉपुलेशन. मुस्लिम के कई बीवियां पैदा करते हैं ताकि ज्यादा बच्चे हों और वो पॉलिटिकल पावर. इससे बड़ी अब्सर्डिटी अगेन कुछ नहीं हो सकती. बाय द वे, नरेंद्र मोदी जब चीफ मिनिस्टर थे गुजरात के, तो उन्होंने ये
की आवाज कट रही है.
देखिए सबोटाज तो नहीं था.
अब आ रहा है. हाँ सॉरी, शेयर स्क्रीन करते हैं.
हाँ. सबोटाज सबोटाज.
So that's one myth we need to bust, that it's not sabotage.
नहीं, इस मिथ को आप सुनिए, बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग इंफॉर्मेशन मैं आपको देने जा रहा हूँ कि हम 5 हमारे 25, ये हाउ इट इज जस्ट नॉट पॉसिबल, कि ये इम्पॉसिबल स्टेटिस्टिकली, जो मैं अगली स्लाइड में जाऊंगा. लेकिन इसमें एक फैक्ट इसमें बता रहा हूँ कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने एक स्टडी की थी 1975 में. एनी ओनली स्टडी एवर डन. सारे कम्युनिटीज के उन्होंने प्रैक्टिसेस देखी और they पाया कि every community has some amount of polygamy and the least polygamous are the Muslims. अगली स्लाइड दिखाइए. ये देखिए 15% ट्राइबल, 10% बुद्धिस्ट, फिर जैन, फिर हिंदू, फिर मुस्लिम. तो लीस्ट पॉलीगेमस आर द मुस्लिम. लेकिन मुसलमान के नाम पे ये पॉलीगेमी के मोहर लगा दी. और मैं भी, मुसलमान का भी ये डायलेमा कि मैं पॉलीगेमी करता नहीं, लेकिन पॉलीगेमी के राइट के लिए लड़ने को, मरने को तैयार हो जाऊंगा कि जी मेरा राइट है. अरे भाई, जब मैं करता ही नहीं तो इसको बैन हो जाने दो, सबके लिए बैन हो जाने दो. लेकिन अगेन ये मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी को समझना चाहिए when you are not actually practicing, so allow it to be banned. तो ये देखिए, ये फैक्ट है कि लीस्ट पॉलीगेमस। नाउ पॉलीगेमी के बारे में इस्लाम कहता क्या है, अगली स्लाइड देखते हैं। Now, polygamy statistically is impossible क्योंकि एक होता है कि जेंडर रेशो एक चीज है। जेंडर रेशो has been adverse against women for the last 100 years, यानी 1000 मर्दों के लिए कितनी औरतें पैदा होती हैं? 972 थी 1901 में, 125 साल पहले 1972, वो घटते घटते 920-22 पे आ गई। और दैट मीन्स 80 जो मर्दों के पास पूरी एक औरत भी नहीं है। 80 लोग बैचलर रह जाएंगे, छड़े रह जाएंगे, क्योंकि औरतें तो है ही नहीं। अब जब 80 लोग बैचलर रह गए, उनके लिए कोई दूसरी औरत बची नहीं, तो मैं दूसरी और तीसरी और चौथी कहां से लाऊंगा? मुझे तो मिलेगी नहीं। और अगर मैं ले भी आया किसी को, तो एक बैचलर और छड़ा रह जाएगा। तो इसलिए ये तो स्टेटिस्टिकली इट इज इम्पॉसिबल ना। फिर ये कि देखिए क्या इस्लाम क्या कहते हैं पॉलीगैमी। ये इसमें हमारे मौलवियों को भी समझने की जरूरत है, वो बहुत एक बड़ी गलती करते हैं इसमें। ये कि कुरान शरीफ में सिर्फ एक आयत है विच टॉक्स ऑफ पॉलीगैमी, एक आयत टोटल, और वो इस तरह है कि यू कैन मैरी 2, 3 और 4 ना। अब ये सुन के मैं तो दूसरी तीसरी करने के लिए दौड़ के चला जाऊं, लेकिन मैंने ये वेट नहीं करता कि आगे आयत क्या कह रही है, अल्लाह आगे क्या कह रहा है। आगे ये कह रहा है, एक तो कॉन्टेक्स्ट और आगे क्या। एक तो ये जो आयत थी ये ऑर्फन्स एंड विडोज के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में थी। ऑर्फन्स की बात हो रही है कि जो यतीम है, ऑर्फन्स हैं, उनकी के साथ तुम ज्यादती न करना, उनकी प्रॉपर्टी को हड़प ना कर लेना, उनकी कोई अच्छी चीज लेके बुरी चीज से रिप्लेस ना कर देना, और वो बड़े इनसिक्योर हैं। उन सबसे अच्छा तो होगा कि तुम उनमें से, उन ऑर्फन्स में से 2 या 3 या 4 से शादी कर लो। आगे सुनिए, लेकिन ये जब भी करना जब तुम उनके साथ एब्सोल्यूट इक्वालिटी कर सकते हो, और खुदा जानता है कि इक्वालिटी करना आसान नहीं। यानी इसका मतलब है कि मेरे पास ऑलरेडी एक बीवी है, मैं दूसरी यतीम भी करके ले आऊं, उसको तो किचन में बर्तन मांजने के लिए भेज दूं, और जो मेन बीवी है वो महारानी साहबा। ये नहीं है कि इट हैज टू बी एब्सोल्यूट इक्वालिटी। तो ये तो इसमें जो हमने देखा, मौलवी साहबान ये तो कहते हैं कि ये पॉलीगेमी इज परमिटेड, नॉट एंजॉइंड अपॉन यू, इट इज परमिटेड विद ए कंडीशन ऑफ इक्वालिटी। मैं कहता हूं कि कंडीशन एक नहीं, कंडीशन 2 है। और पहली कंडीशन ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आयत में ही लिखा हुआ है कि फ्रॉम अमंग दोज ऑर्फन्स यू कैन मैरी 2, 3 और 4। तो सबसे पहले तो मुझे ऑर्फन ही में से विडो ही ढूंढनी पड़ेगी ना, और ऑर्फन ढूंढनी पड़ेगी, ना कि वर्जिन की तलाश करूं। कि वर्जिन, आप हिंदुस्तान टाइम के ऐड देखें, हर एक को वर्जिन चाहिए होती है। खुद चाहे क्या उन्होंने हरकतें क्यों अपनी जिंदगी में, वाइफ वर्जिन चाहिए। तो इसमें लिखा हुआ है कि फ्रॉम अमंग दोज विडोज you can marry 2. So therefore there are 2 conditions. So this is something which even our ulama need to understand. Next please. Then in myth number 5, Islam is against family planning. So nowhere the Quran has prohibited family planning. There are only interpretations, कुछ for है कुछ against है। मैंने वो सारी interpretation for and against वहां पे किताब में लिख दी हैं। तो कितने जो शरिया आप सुनते हैं ना, व्हाट इज शरिया, ये दैट इज आल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड। शरिया के 4 कंपोनेंट थे। हमने अमीन साहब से ही सुना था, उन्होंने किसी एक लेक्चर में बताया था। सबसे पहला कुरान, इट इज लाइक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ इंडिया। उसके बाद हदीस, विच इज लाइक द एक्ट्स विच आर पास्ड अंडर द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। हदीस इज ट्रेडिशंस ऑफ द प्रॉफिट, जो प्रॉफिट करते थे या जो उन्होंने कहा हमको ये करो वो करो, उसको हदीस कहते हैं। उसके अलावा इजमा इज ए कलेक्टिव ओपिनियन एंड कयास इज कंजक्चर और इंडिविजुअल इंटरप्रिटेशन। ये है शरीयत के ये कंपोनेंट्स हैं। तो इसमें बहुत सारे हदीस हैं और शरीयत से मैंने इसमें निकाल के दिखाई हैं कि कुरान ने कहीं भी फैमिली प्लानिंग को प्रोहिबिट नहीं किया, जबकि बहुत सारी चीजें प्रोहिबिट की। शराब पीना प्रोहिबिट किया, सुअर खाना, पिग पोर्क खाना प्रोहिबिट किया, इंटरेस्ट लेना प्रोहिबिट किया। बल्कि एक आयत बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग है, अल्लाह ये कह रहा है कि जो चीजें हमने तुम पे बैन करनी थी हमने तुमको तफसील से समझा दिया है। अब ऐसा है नहीं सकता कि अगर कुरान से वो क्या अल्लाह ये फैमिली प्लानिंग प्रोहिबिट करना भूल गया, उसकी उसमें भूल तो उसकी उसमें हो नहीं सकती, तो उन्होंने बैन नहीं कर रहा था, उन्होंने उसका जिक्र ही नहीं किया, कहीं जिक्र नहीं है। तो इसलिए अगर कोई मुसलमान ये मुल्ला लोग ये कहेंगे कि फैमिली प्लानिंग इस्लाम में है, वो गलत कह रहे हैं। कहीं भी इस्लाम में बैन नहीं है। बल्कि इसके एंड में मैंने क्लिंचिंग, मैंने जब एनालिसिस किया तो एक आयत तो दो हदीसों पे मैं क्लिंच करता हूँ पूरा इस्लाम। ये आयत क्या है कि एक आयत है यंग यंग लोगों को एड्रेस है कि लेट दोज हु डू नॉट हैव द मींस फॉर मैरिज कीप देमसेल्व्स चेस्ट until Allah gives them means out of grace। यानी मींस ऑफ मैरिज, ये नहीं कि आपके पास खाने को कुछ है नहीं आ रहा, शादी करके लिया और बच्चे पैदा करने शुरू कर दिए और उनको भूखा मारा। तो यानी शादी आप जब भी करें जब आप इस लायक हो जाएं कि टू सपोर्ट ए फैमिली, ये साफ आयत कह रही है। और शादी करने का बेनिफिट भी बताया कि जब शादी होती है तो आप पराई औरतों को ललचाई नजरों से नहीं देखोगे। ये है ना। एक गरीब आदमी प्रॉफिट के पास पहुंच गया, जो होता था कि वो समझने के लिए प्रॉफिट के पास, बल्कि प्रोटेस्ट करता हुआ पहुंच गया। अगले स्लाइड देखें। उसने ये कहा कि हुजूर, अल्लाह ये कहता है कि जब मेरे पास साधन होंगे जब भी मैं शादी कर सकता हूँ। मैं बहुत गरीब हूँ लेकिन मेरी सेक्सुअल डिजायर तो पूरी हैं, मैं क्या करूं? तो हुजूर ने, प्रॉफिट ने उसको रिपीट किया और उनका, ओ यंग मैन, दोज ऑफ यू हु कैन सपोर्ट ए वाइफ एंड हाउस होल्ड शुड मैरी, because marriage keeps you from looking with lust at women and preserves you from promiscuity. But those who cannot should take to fasting, which is a means of tempering sexual desire। यानी मैरिज डिले करो, ये कुरान ने कह दिया, प्रॉफिट ने बता दिया उस डिले करने की तरकीब के, रोजा रखो, उपवास रखो, तो उससे सेक्सुअल डिजायर सप्रेस होती हैं। तो आप वेट करो टिल यू आर रेडी। फाइनली क्लिंचिंग, बस एक दो स्लाइड ही बची हैं। फाइनली इसमें एक और हदीस है कि एक शख्स प्रॉफिट के पास गया कि मेरे बहुत बच्चे हुए हैं और मैं और बच्चे नहीं चाहता, और मैं अज़ल ये क्वाइटस इंटरप्रेस यानी विड्रॉल मेथड यूज करना चाहता हूँ, जो तरीका था उस जमाने का। और लेकिन एक जू ये कहता है मुझे कि वो तो माइनर इन्फेंटिसाइड है, यू विल बी किलिंग द स्पर्म, वो तो जो इन्फेंटिसाइड है। तो हुजूर ने, प्रॉफिट ने फरमाया कि नहीं, जू ने गलत कहा, जू ने गलत कहा। ये हदीस, ये कंफर्म हदीस है। यानी इफ यू वांट टू प्रैक्टिस अज़ल विड्रॉल, गो अहेड एंड डू इट, no harm in it। So tariqa bhi, the method also is recommended। Next please। Now Islam in fact is the pioneer of family planning। Islam is the originator of family planning। ये अल-अज़हर यूनिवर्सिटी कैरो के प्रोफेसर अब्दुल रहीम उमरान ने बड़ी अच्छी किताब में लिखा कि इट इज अ वंडर टू द थिंकर्स ऑफ टुडे that Islam should give so much importance to child spacing and family planning so early in human history and in the absence of compelling population pressure। उस वक्त तो कोई पॉपुलेशन का दबाव भी नहीं था। उस वक्त इस्लाम क्वालिटी ऑफ हेल्थ ऑफ वुमेन, हेल्थ ऑफ चिल्ड्रन, नीड फॉर अपब्रिंगिंग, ये सारी बात कुरान शरीफ 1400 साल पहले कह रहा है। तो ये दैट मींस इट इज सच ए प्रोग्रेसिव रिलीजन। और हमारे मुल्ला अगर इसको डिस्टॉर्ट करके इसको बदनाम करते हैं तो ये बड़ी ज्यादती। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। Now, it is not a Hindu versus Muslim issue at all, because the factors which determine family planning behavior are actually several, but three mainly: literacy, particularly of girls, income, and service delivery। Now, इंटर-स्टेट वेरिएशन इतने हैं कि कोई स्टेट ज्यादा प्रोग्रेसिव है, वहां पे लिटरेसी, जैसे केरला सबसे अच्छी लिटरेसी है तो सबसे अच्छी फैमिली प्लानिंग है। बिहार में सबसे पुअर लिटरेसी है तो सबसे पुअर फैमिली प्लानिंग है। तो इट इज एक्चुअली डिपेंडेंट ऑन दीज थ्री फैक्टर्स, जिसमें मुसलमान सबसे पिछड़े हुए हैं। एक दूसरी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज इसमें, आप ये रेड बुलेट देखेंगे कि 25 स्टेट्स ऐसी हैं 29 में से जहां पे मुसलमानों का TFR बिहार के हिंदुओं से कम है। अब बिहार के हिंदुओं को मैं बेंचमार्क क्यों बना रहा हूँ? क्योंकि उनका सबसे हाई फर्टिलिटी है, क्योंकि उनके भी बैकवर्डनेस है, उनके भी पॉवर्टी है। तो अगर इस्लाम फैक्टर होता तो इन 25 स्टेट्स में मुसलमानों की फैमिली प्लानिंग इतनी अच्छी नहीं होती। तो there is nothing like Hindu fertility or Muslim fertility. क्यों? क्योंकि आप देखिए मुस्लिम फर्टिलिटी अगर तमिलनाडु में अगर 1.7 है तो बिहार में 4.1 है. इसमें से आप मुस्लिम फर्टिलिटी मानेंगे, तमिलनाडु की वाली या बिहार वाली? इसी तरह हिंदूज की फर्टिलिटी 1.4 अगर केरला में है तो 3.2 बिहार में है. तो इट इज नॉट अ क्वेश्चन ऑफ हिंदू वर्सेस मुस्लिम एट ऑल. तो नेक्स्ट प्लीज. नाउ लिटरेसी की जैसे हमने बात की, आप ये देखेंगे जो ग्राफ ये जो नीचे जा रही है ये लाइन, जो इलिटरेट है उनके 3 बच्चे हैं, और आखिर में चले जाइए जिन्होंने 12वीं क्लास कर ली उन बच्चे आधे रह जाते 1.7. किस तरह ये ग्राफ अक्रॉस ऑल कम्युनिटी, अक्रॉस द बोर्ड. ये देखिए जैसे जैसे तालीम बढ़ रही है वैसे वैसे बच्चे घट रहे हैं. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. ये इसी तरह तालीम के साथ, एजुकेशन के साथ एज ऑफ मैरिज डिले हो जाती है. जो अनपढ़ हैं उनके 17 साल में मैरिज हो रही है पहली वाली बार, और जो 12वीं क्लास जिन्होंने कर ली वो आखिरी वाली बार 22 ईयर्स. तो 17 साल से 22 साल तक शादी की एज डिले हो जाती है जैसे जैसे पढ़ाई बढ़ती चली जाती है. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. इसी तरह ये देखिए अर्बन और रूरल पढ़ाई के साथ बच्चों की तादाद गिरती चली जा रही है. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. ये इसी तरह इनकम, जो सबसे पुअर है उनके 3 बच्चे, जो रिचेस्ट है उनका 1.6 चिल्ड्रन. तो जैसे जैसे इनकम बढ़ती है वैसे वैसे बच्चे घटते हैं. तो इनकम बढ़ाने की बात तो कोई आरएसएस वाला और राइट विंग वाला मुसलमान की करता नहीं, बल्कि वो ये कहता है इनसे सब्जी भी ना खरीदो. अब आप उनसे सब्जी भी नहीं खरीदोगे तो वो तो जाके घर में पैदा कर देगा, फिर आपको तकलीफ होगी. तो इसलिए उसकी इनकम बढ़ाने की तो बात करते नहीं, उसकी एजुकेशन की तो बात करती नहीं. और अगला देखिए, नॉन वर्कर्स हैव मोर चिल्ड्रन देन वर्कर्स. तो उनको काम दिन मिलना चाहिए, नहीं मिलता अर्बन रूरल दोनों में. ये नेक्स्ट प्लीज. नाउ सर्विस डिलीवरी, जैसे ऐसे ही नहीं डॉक्टर और नर्स पहुंचेंगे जब भी तो सर्विस वहां पे कोई फैमिली प्लानिंग कराएगा. मेवात एरिया जैसे गुड़गांव जिले में मैंने मेंशन किया, 40 पोस्टों में से 35 पोस्टें खाली हैं. तो मेवात में फैमिली प्लानिंग नहीं होगी तो आप मेवात को गाली देंगे, बुरा भला कहेंगे, अरे भाई डॉक्टर तो भेजो वहां पे. तो वहां पे लोग फैमिली प्लानिंग करने को तैयार हैं. बल्कि मैं एक फिगर है जो इसमें से रह गई, और मैंने इस्लाम को स्टडी किया कि इस्लाम में फैमिली प्लानिंग टोटली रिकमेंडेड है. स्पेसिंग सिर्फ स्टेरिलाइजेशन बैंड है, यानी परमानेंट मेथड जो है वो बैंड है. तो वो तो हमारी गवर्नमेंट भी उसको प्रेफरेंस नहीं देती, स्पेसिंग ही को वो देती है ना. जो चीजें इस्लाम में बैंड है, यूनानिमसली बैंड है, वहां उसके बावजूद 20% मुस्लिम्स ऑफ इंडिया हैव गॉन फॉर स्टेरिलाइजेशन. वो इस्लाम को वायलेट करने तक को तैयार है फैमिली प्लानिंग करने के लिए. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. Now, where do Muslims stand in all these socio-economic indicators? At the bottom, देखिए स्लाइड देखें, ये इसमें बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग पैटर्न निकल के आएगा. आप देखिएगा ये ग्रीन एंड ऑरेंज मैंने दिखाया ना, इसमें आप देखेंगे इन लिटरेसी मर्दों की पहला वाला जो चार्ट है वो उसमें मर्दों का है, दूसरा औरतों का है. सबसे कम लिटरेसी मुस्लिम्स की. लेकिन साथ साथ ये भी मिस न कीजिए उसके बाद किसकी, हिंदुओं की. ये भी नहीं है कि हिंदू बहुत आगे हैं लिटरेसी में, बड़े एडवांस हैं, वो भी बेचारे शोल्डर टू शोल्डर हैं. मुसलमान सबसे पिछड़े हैं तो हिंदू भी पिछड़े हुए हैं. ये ग्राफ देख लीजिए. अगला देखिए, वर्कर पॉपुलेशन मुसलमान सबसे कम वर्कर. अगला देखिए, एंटीनेटल केयर मुसलमानों तक सबसे कम है, लेकिन हिंदुओं की भी कम है. अगले नेक्स्ट देखिए, अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड सर्विसेज मुसलमानों के लिए सबसे कम है, बस हिंदुओं की नंबर 2 है, वो भी इंपॉर्टेंट है. नेक्स्ट देखिए, अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ एडवाइस ऑन फैमिली प्लानिंग लोवेस्ट फॉर मुस्लिम. ये देखिए, हिंदूज आल्सो नॉट फार बिहाइंड. नेक्स्ट प्लीज. नाउ फिर मैंने एक चैप्टर इसमें दिया कि फैमिली प्लानिंग इन मुस्लिम कंट्रीज. क्या अगर इस्लाम फैक्टर होता है तो वहां पे क्या होता है, तो ईरान जो बड़ी कंजर्वेटिव है, दुनिया की सबसे अच्छी फैमिली प्लानिंग ईरान में है. इजिप्ट में, इंडोनेशिया, बांग्लादेश ओवरटेकन, पाकिस्तान से निकल गया था तो बड़ी उनकी बर्थ रेट हाई था, लेकिन अपनी 30-40 साल 50 साल में उन्होंने इतनी तरक्की, इंडिया से अच्छी फिगर्स हो गई बांग्लादेश की। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। ये वही फिगर है जो ईरान, मलेशिया, टर्की, बांग्लादेश को की फैमिली प्लानिंग अच्छा परफॉर्म है। कि अगर मुस्लिम कंट्रीज फैमिली प्लानिंग कर रही हैं तो ऑब्वियसली वहां तो कोई बीजेपी आरएसएस फैक्टर नहीं है। वो जानती है कि इस्लाम ठीक कहता है, इस्लाम अलाउ करता है फैमिली प्लानिंग, इसीलिए वो फॉलो कर रहे हैं। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। पॉपुलेशन एंड पॉलिटिकल प्रोपेगेंडा, ये जो हिंदुओं को प्रोवोक किया जाता है राइट विंग के, लिए आप भी ज्यादा बच्चे पैदा करो, तो ये दिस इज वेरी बैड। एंड मैथमेटिकल मॉडल का मैंने ऑलरेडी आपको जिक्र कर ही दिया। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। Actually Muslims and Hindus, as you have seen, they are actually in the same boat। बेचारे दोनों शोल्डर टू शोल्डर है, दोनों पुअर हैं, दोनों में लिटरेसी कम है, दोनों में सर्विसेज औरों से कम है। इस वजह से वो तो भाई भाई हैं, तो इसलिए उनको दे आर नॉट ऑपोजिट एंड्स ऑफ द स्पेक्ट्रम, दे आर ऑन द सेम साइड। Now national population policy of 2000 actually has been a success, as Sonu had mentioned। हमारे जो नेशनल TFR है, टोटल फर्टिलिटी 2.2 है ऑलरेडी हम 2.1 इज द रिप्लेसमेंट रेट। 2.1 रिप्लेसमेंट रेट का क्या मतलब होता है कि दो माँ बाप हैं जो वो मर जाएंगे तो उनके दो बच्चे उनकी जगह आ जाएंगे, तो पॉपुलेशन रिप्लेस हो गई। 0.1 इसलिए है कि समटाइम्स बच्चे भी मर जाते हैं, तो उसका मार्जिन रखने के लिए 2.1। तो अगर TFR 2.1 किसी नेशन का हो जाता है, that means there will be no further growth in population। We are already there। 2.2 हो चुका है, ये तो हमारे सेंसस के बाद था, अब तो और भी नीचे आके हम तो 1.9 पे आ गए। तो we are almost there, we have achieved it। 25 states have already achieved the target। Only 4 northern states, यूपी, बिहार, मध्य प्रदेश और राजस्थान, जिनको बीमारू स्टेट किसी प्रोफेसर आशीष बोस ने एक दफा कहा था, वो बहुत पॉपुलर टर्म हो गई है। उन 4 पर फोकस करो, उनको शिक्षा दो, उनकी आमदनी बढ़ाओ ऑटोमेटिकली, और सर्विस डिलीवरी, हेल्थ और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इंप्रूव करो। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। वेयर इज द फेलियर? कि हमारे जो प्लान डॉक्यूमेंट हमेशा, ये तो हमेशा कहते थे कि मुस्लिम बर्थ रेट हाईएस्ट है, लेकिन सॉल्यूशन कोई ऑफर नहीं करते थे। रियल फैक्टर्स आर लिटरेसी, पॉवर्टी, उसको एड्रेस करने की कोई बात ही नहीं की गई। अच्छा, इस्लाम क्या कहता है, इसकी कोई रिसोर्स बुक नहीं बनाई गई। अब अगर आप सपोज आप हेल्थ वर्कर हैं, आप मेरे पास फैमिली प्लानिंग का प्रचार लेके आए, मैं कहूंगा जी मेरा मजहब इसके खिलाफ है, आपके पास तो कोई जवाब नहीं, आप मुंह लटका के चले जाएंगे। लेकिन अगर आपके पास ये जवाब है, जो मैं रिसोर्स बुक मैंने ऑफर की है भारत सरकार को, मैं आपको फ्री प्रो बोनो बना के दूंगा कि मुसलमानों में भी उसका प्रचार किया जाए, और अगर कोई अपोज करता है उसको दिखाएंगे इस्लाम तो एक्चुअली ये कह रहा है। नेक्स्ट प्लीज। रिकमेंडेशन, दिस इज द लास्ट स्लाइड, कि नेशनल पॉपुलेशन पॉलिसी हमेशा होनी चाहिए, बहुत अच्छा आइडिया है। मुस्लिम शुड मस्ट अडॉप्ट फैमिली प्लानिंग इवन मोर प्रोएक्टिवली, और फेथ लीडर्स को इन्वॉल्व करो, फॉल्स एंड में फॉल्स प्रोपेगेंडा को डिस्पेल करो। मैं सारे एक एक को मेंशन नहीं करा, लेकिन ये कहना चाहूंगा कि ईरान और इंडोनेशिया के मुस्लिम स्कॉलर्स को यहाँ बुला के उनके लेक्चर कराइए, हमारे उलमा को वहां भेजिए, वो सीख के आएंगे तो अच्छी अच्छी बात कहेंगे। तो ये सब करने की चीजें हैं, बजाय कि झूठा प्रोपेगेंडा, फॉल्स प्रोपेगेंडा जिससे हेट वो गलत है। ये हिंदू मुस्लिम तो एक ही साइड ऑफ द स्पेक्ट्रम है, और we have to make them understand this issue। Next please। Thank you very much। Thank you Sonu, and sorry अगर थोड़ा लंबा हो गया तो, लेकिन कोई भी फैक्ट इसमें irrelevant नहीं था।
नहीं, I think very interesting, and but I think you mentioned कि ये जो है आप बार बार वही बोल रहे हैं, हिंदू मुस्लिम is actually not a Hindu Muslim problem। It's more of a sociological problem, and happens across all. So it's not a religious problem, it's more of a sociological problem. And the answers do not lie with the priests or the ulemas or the the religious leaders. It lies with the medical leaders and better education. So after listening to your presentation, the thought that remains in my mind is that all of us together need to move away from religiousing this issue and use it for propaganda. So the one question that I have for you is, before the others have a lot of questions, is it really a widespread belief कि मुस्लिम ज्यादा बच्चे पैदा करते हैं, या ये केवल एक प्रोपेगेंडा है और उसकी आवाज जो कॉमन मैन की अंडरस्टैंडिंग या बिलीफ है उससे कहीं ज्यादा है?
नहीं, ये तो आम सरप्राइज के आपने सवाल भी किया। ये तो इतना वाइड स्प्रेड है, इतना वाइड स्प्रेड है, यू कैन इमेजिन। बल्कि हमारे जो 20 लोग 21 लोग अभी भी मौजूद हैं, उनसे अगर क्विक सर्वे करके पूछ लें कि उन्होंने ये सुना है कि नहीं सुना, ये तो इतना वाइड स्प्रेड कर देगी, क्योंकि इसी पे सारी जो पोलराइजेशन है इसी पे बेस की गई कि पॉलिटिकल पावर कैप्चर करने का लेके।
So I'm sure that a lot of people have a lot of questions. So I am going to stop the recording and then we will have the question and answers. So thank you, Quraishi Saab. This has been very instructive, very interesting. And your life journey has also been very, very interesting. And you have made a promise, and I plan to, follow up with you that एक और हाँ जी इसी पे जो election के ऊपर है, which is again going to be very topical. So we will plan that with you. But thank you for taking time out and talking to us.
Thank you very much.